If you thought this was crazy, then what on earth is this? That's the weirdest gadget I've ever seen. So, in front of us right now, we've got 15 of the latest, craziest smartphone gadgets, and each one is going to be more impressive than the last. So first up is a wireless charging pad with a twist, because this thing is modular. So depending on how many smart devices you have, you can buy up to 6 separate modular 5s, and each one will just magnetically attach to the last. Cool concept, but doesn't it just make more sense to decide how many charging pads you need to start with, and then buy a charger made for that many devices, as opposed to literally paying $30 per pad if you go down this route? I give this a 5 out of 10. But do you want to know what true madness looks like? Paying $600 for a wireless charger. That's exactly what you're looking at right now. It's got a frame made of literal solid aluminium, the padding is genuine Alcantara, it's crazy heavy, and it does feel luxury. Plus, this isn't one of those pretty on the outside, dumb on the inside type deals. This thing actually uses a technology called free power, which means that you can have up to 3 devices charging simultaneously, and it almost doesn't matter where you put them on it. I've even had my iPhone partly hanging off and it's still charging. But I would say that I don't think a wireless charger is a particularly good match for a luxury makeover like this. Because this isn't like with phones where you might pay like 10% extra to get the Pro version, you're paying about 10 times as much. All for a device that, if you're using it right, you may actually never need to physically touch it yourself again. But let's test it. I'm gonna put one iPhone on this charger, and then another iPhone on the $30 Modular 5. We'll check back later and see which one's charged up more. So next up is the Echo Show 10, and it's one of the creepiest but surprisingly useful pieces of tech I've ever used. At its core, this is yet another Amazon Echo product, which means that I can use it to manage my smart home devices, I can ask it the weather, I can tell it to play whatever song I want it to. But what makes this weird is that it's a 10.1-inch smart display attached via a rotating mechanism to an actually pretty capable smart speaker, and it uses a combination of audio and computer vision to track you around your room. I will say though, as intrusive as that does sound, being able to watch a movie or take a call without worrying about having to prop my phone up somewhere is a luxury that I didn't realize I valued. But it's pretty annoying that there's no YouTube app here. So you have to mess around with the web browser, and that pulls you out of the whole hands-free experience. Right, I think it's fair to say that every year smartphone cameras get just that little bit closer to pro cameras. In fact, last year was the first time I started shooting not just social posts, but also parts of these videos using my phone instead of my actual camera. Well, here's a product that I think is a natural consequence of this progression. A motorized slider made with the smartphone in mind. And for those of you who don't know, that means I can clip my phone in and make this slider basically move it and rotate it however I want to. So this means we can end up with shots like this taken on a phone. I have found it a little bit cumbersome though. You know how we've got used to like everything happening at the snap of a finger? This thing spends a full minute recalibrating itself every single time I turn it on. Still though, solid 6 out of 10 over here. And thanks to Surfshark VPN for sponsoring this video. Okay, you've probably seen quite a few gadgets that are built to stick onto the back of your phone. You've got those pop sockets, there's phone wallets, we've even had a speaker on one of these past episodes. Well, now we have a gadget that allows you to stick anything onto your phone. It's a very simple bit of engineering. 2 pieces of plastic really. One goes onto your phone, the other onto whatever you want to attach. And it keeps them close enough together that wireless charge can still pass between them. So your phone can keep your earphones topped up on battery. The only thing I'd say is that it's almost too well engineered. The clip is so firm that the first 2 times I installed one of these, I accidentally tore the glue off my phone trying to unclip my earphones. Anyways, last one before things get really crazy, this is Prismo, an RGB wireless charger. And when I first saw it, I kinda had to laugh. It feels like the human race will not stop until there is RGB lighting on everything. That said, as I started using it, I was disappointed in myself by how much I liked it. It's got a grippy rubberized texture, so your phone doesn't get scratched, a solid frame, and a whole load of rotating, pulsing LED modes. Is this an energy efficient way to charge your phone? Absolutely not. Is it cool? Yeah. Here's something about me. I am a massive tea guy.
You like a cup of tea?
I've literally been drinking this jam and toast stuff for about a month now, and I think I finally understand addiction. And so, here we have a smartphone gadget that almost feels like it was made for me. Probably the most ridiculous mug that you've ever seen. I mean, apart from the fact that it looks like it's been stolen straight from the Queen's fine dining set, this is a smart temperature control mug. Meaning that I can pour my tea in, set a temperature that I want it to stay at, and then for an hour and a half, or forever if I keep it on the charging coaster, it will. There's a customizable LED to tell you when it's reached your perfect temperature. It can turn itself off when it knows that it's empty. This thing is so far removed from a normal mug that I almost feel like it could benefit from having a few less features and a slightly more reachable price point. But it is really, really good. Almost a 7 out of 10. We'll give it 6.9. And if you are enjoying this video, then a sub to the channel would be splendid. Now from a company called SLYK, we've got an entire assortment of super premium smartphone holders, which is not a category of products that I thought was missing from my life, but they are really well made, and they're not as expensive as they look. I've got a bathroom stand, an adjustable table stand, and even one designed to go around a pillow, and each one pairs a smooth matte finish with heavy metal construction, and they're just generally good stands too. I feel pretty reassured that when my phone is in one of these, it ain't going anywhere. Does kind of look like a dinner tray though. Let's just see how our wireless chargers are getting on. That's very interesting. Okay, we'll get there soon. Now, one of the biggest tragedies of the smartphone market is almost undoubtedly the removal of the headphone jack, because it's resulted in a lot of these headphone jack adapters. However, there's a company called Helm Audio who are basically saying that they've invented a gadget that turns this annoyance into a benefit. Basically, for the longest time, audio has been stored digitally as a long string of zeros and ones, but that doesn't really mean anything to our ears. So to convert that back to music again, it has to go through a digital to analog converter, or a DAC. Every phone has one of these, but not all of them are great, especially if they're from wish.com. So this right here is a headphone jack adapter with a high-end DAC built inside of it. And as long as you're someone who uses a reasonably high-end pair of headphones, and or you use a music service that supports high-fidelity sound, it's just gonna feel like your music has more life to it. Anyways. But this is where things get really interesting. So about a month ago, you might remember I played around with a device called the Oppo Find X3 Pro. It was a pretty forgettable phone for the most part, but it had this microscope camera that just blew me away. But it turns out, after a quick Amazon search, you can buy microscopes for any phone. So this one here is apparently 100 times magnification. Tiny little thing, all things considered, and it also has a light inside that turns on when you remove the cover. And then, coming in at least 5 times the size, this one's an adjustable microscope, all the way up to 250 times. And they actually work. Have a look on my desk here. This is the closest I can get on my iPhone normally. But if we put this 100 times lens on, have a look at this. We can see levels of texture that I didn't even realize existed. For perspective, this is a side-by-side versus the original. But what about this one? I've got to say to start with, because it's just so enormous, the fit isn't as secure. And because the barrel is so enormous, it does cut off some of your image, so you have to zoom in a bit on your phone. But this is on a whole new level. Again, original shot versus this. So yeah, surprisingly good. But you know how I was saying earlier that smartphone cameras are improving really fast, right? Well, there's one aspect of them that's kind of leveled off a little bit. The flash. And so what you're looking at right now is the Bigsofti, aka smartphone flash done right. It is super easy to mount, not just on your phone, mind you, it could be a laptop too. It's easy to control. It charges with the same USB-C cable as most Android phones, but most importantly, it makes an enormous difference. So this is video taken on an iPhone 12 Pro Max using the inbuilt flash, and this is taken using the Bigsofti. But this difference becomes even more pronounced when we move to the front camera, because, well, most phones don't have a front flash module, whereas if you're using a tool like this, you can just flip it around. This feels like definite 8 out of 10 territory. Obviously, not everyone's gonna want this fat thing on their phone, but for anyone who does, not really got much bad to say about it. So, there was a gadget I featured about a year ago, and it's one of those it's kind of stuck with me as part of my regular tech repertoire. It's called the NexDock, and it's basically a cheap laptop, but it's empty. All it has is speakers and a battery, but the idea is that you can power it with your phone. Anyways, this is the follow-up, the NexDock Touch, which is exactly what it says on the tin. It's a touchscreen version of that. And that sounds subtle, but it's the difference between it feeling like a cumbersome laptop and basically just a supersized smartphone. And there's quite a lot of cool things you can do because of that. For example, proper touchscreen multitasking, where you're not limited by the size of the display. I can type SMS text messages using a full keyboard, and I have full control over my phone's cameras using this laptop, which means that I can take selfies, for example, using the main quality cameras. It's a bit odd, but I can even answer calls using that set of cameras. Plus, because it's one of the rare devices with an HDMI input, you can also use this thing as a portable travel monitor for a Nintendo Switch or even a PS5. My only criticism is that, while of course it's a bigger screen, it's probably not going to be a better screen than you'll already have on your phone. It's only a 1080p LCD. It's not special hardware, but it is a special concept. Okay, this is the Storm 2, and it's quite possibly the most jacked power bank you've ever laid eyes on. The one I've got here is a beta version, so packaging isn't final, but the product itself is ludicrous. For starters, I've never actually taken apart a battery bank myself, so to be able to kind of see the internals like this spread apart, big fan. Even Simba likes it. Do you want to check the battery, Simba? Oh. They've even built their own operating system, where you can see far more data than you probably care about. And thankfully its performance also lives up to its demeanor. This thing has a 27,600 mAh capacity, so it can charge an iPhone 12 Pro Max about 5 times over. And it can both charge and be charged at the same time if you wanted to, with 100 watts of power. That's crazy fast. Any more powerful and you wouldn't be able to take this on a plane. The only thing is, they do say this casing is super resistant against extreme high and extreme low temperatures, but it does just feel like quite flexible plastic. Now, if you thought that was crazy, I'm about to show you something that makes it look like a toy for toddlers. We're not throwing this one. This is the Superbase 500, and at $449, I'm pretty sure it's the most expensive power bank we've ever had on the channel. I mean, at this point it's more like a power station, let's be honest. So, given that an iPhone 12 has about 2,800 mAh of capacity, and given that a 13-inch MacBook Pro has about 5,000 mAh of capacity, how much do you think we have here? 30,000? 50,000? 140,000 mAh. Oh, also it can power 9 devices simultaneously, including 2 through AC power ports, capable of sending out 600 watts of power. Which makes this less about just topping your phone up, more about being your entire power solution. It's got a display up front to tell you its current capacity. It can be recharged in 5 different ways, and you could even plug in 2 cables at once to increase that speed further. You obviously have to be a very particular type of user to need this kind of power, but if you want it, it's here. Right. We've seen weird on this channel. We've had wallpapers that crash phones. We've had 2 separate run-ins with the Escobar family. We've had USB sticks that claim to create force fields around you. This one's up there. Awesome unboxing experience, I guess as you'd expect for close to $300, but you might be wondering, what am I looking at here? Well, these are smart shoes that sync with whatever music you're listening to on your phone and allow you to feel that sound through your feet. Yep. Now if that sounds ridiculous and kind of dumb, then I totally get it, because that's exactly what I thought too. But then I tried them, and I meant to go on a 10-minute walk. I ended up prancing around my room for 2 hours straight looking like an idiot. If you're someone who is moved by music, this feels like having a whole new dimension to it. So much so that it kind of now feels like something's missing without them. They have a built-in 6-hour battery. They're surprisingly good looking and comfortable, considering how much tech is packed into them. You have full control over the intensity of impact, and they even have latency compensation, meaning that you can manually offset when the vibrations hit to make sure that they're 100% in sync with the music you're listening to. They are heavy shoes, but 5 minutes in I was too busy cutting shapes to really care. Okay, let's have a look at the final scores for this charging test. So, on the Modula 5, the $30 cheaper wireless charger, but still not cheap, the phone is on 74% charged. On the expensive one, 51%. This is why wireless charging it sucks. But the takeaway is that if you do want to use a wireless charger, then it's really tough for me to recommend a luxury wireless charger. Okay, here's something to think about for a second. Your location, your operating system, every hardware detail of the device you're on right now, as well as all your past browsing history. These are things that you'd want to keep to yourself, right? Well, this is how much information a website immediately knows about you the second you click on it. And to be honest, if it's a website you trust, it's fine. But I think it's fair to say that there's a fair few that you wouldn't want to know this. And that's where Surfshark VPN comes in. As far as I've seen, it's the most affordable way to keep yourself anonymous. It's just over $2 a month for as many people and devices as you want. Because the way it works is you can effectively pick the location you want your device to come from. I can pick the US and watch US TV shows. You can effectively have the exclusives for every single region without leaving your home. Like, if I wanted to watch Batman the Dark Knight, I just switch to Canada, and I can do that. So, check the link in the description and use the code BOSS for 83% off and an extra 3 months for free. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Aaron, this is Mr. Who's the Boss, and I'll catch you in the next one.